Hello, everyone, and welcome to Twilight Epiphanies Talk Radio with Cindy Magnuson, and the show is about to begin. So, slow down, take a seat, put your feet up, and maybe take some notes, because this show is about you, it's for you, and it is designed to help you receive exactly what you need to be a happier and healthier you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 27 of Twilight Epiphanies Radio and show number 5 in the Twilight Epiphanies Honor Roll series. Tonight, I am featuring Edward Foster of Edward Foster Art, a visionary artist, musician, songwriter, and poet. I've chosen Edward for the magic he is reviving in our hearts and in our minds, of places within us that remember the days when life was celebrated in deep reverence for the beauty, wonder, and play that nature invokes us into if we are once again able to bring these lost aspects of self back into their respective prominence in our lives. The splendor of our multidimensional selves comes alive in Edward's work, cultivating the emotional resonance to return to the spontaneous innocence of unknowing that offers its treasured prizes if we are so curious enough to halt our busied minds and let enchantment tease our most precious passions of child wonderment back into magical explorations. He shares with us the essence of creation so delicately painted in the child's play, focused and present, blurring out all else save the present moment. Coming alive in his work, he creates for us the essences of the mythical folklore of Druidic characters, gods and goddesses, nature spirits, and more, capturing the forces from which we create, blend, and thus inhabit and form, replete with each story of a hero we might at some time embrace. His most recent revival of Merlin calls to us to seek ever deeper into the journey to bring alive the wizard within, and live once again is the extension of nature's greatest power to reign in the balance and harmony that humanity has long been missing. So let's bring Edward on the line and say hello. Hello to you, Edward.
Hello, Cindy. What an introduction. Gosh, how beautiful. Thank you so much for that.
You're very welcome. The magic is happening, definitely. I have to tell you how auspicious this is for me. I love to just work at being in the flow, where then if you take a look at the synchronicities around, they've already displayed themselves without you having to plan. So as of late, I have been watching episodes again of Merlin on Netflix. I absolutely love doing that in my spare time. That's my relaxation and escape time. And in that, also, that synchronicity, I also had my first dragon dream. So this is the first time that a dragon appeared in my dream. And of course, you paint these lovely, incredible dragons as well as draw them, bring them alive for us. So also I want to note that a lot of my work is a reflection. I do numerology. So I look at how the numbers have fallen here. What are the reflections in the timing of the events? So when this show is going to be aired for the first time in the UK, it will be on the 11th, which is 1/11, and it will begin at 1 a.m. in the morning. That means new beginnings. And in that, I want to emphasize the importance of your work in being able to usher in and seed and assist in a very profound way the connections that we have been moved away from to nature, that you invite us into once again through your both auditory and your music, the sounds that are coming from your paintings and your pictures, and the visualizations that you give us, capturing these essences so that we can retune into them once again through your work. So thank you so much for that. I'm so excited to hear about all of the different types of work that you do. And first of all, let's begin with how you started your journey. When did you first know that you were going to be an artist, had the desire to do this for a living, and what has inspired you in your life to get to this point here?
Right, easy question first then. Okay.
You can narrow it down to the beginnings. What in childhood is that special moment that you said, I'm going to do this?
I shall start at the beginning, like all good tales. Well, interesting enough, talking about tales, I suppose the first thing that inspired me to take the path I have done is my father reading The Hobbit to me when I was a really little boy. I would imagine I would be about 4 years old. And I've got very strong memories of him reading the story and doing all the voices as well. He did a very good Gollum, very good hobbits, and his wizards were superb. So that made a big impact on me. And The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, and any works by Tolkien have continued to influence my artwork. And I still do create artwork from those books and works. So that was a very important thing. That's my sort of first memory, shall we say. And then as a child, I loved to go and hide in the garden, and if I could, escape from the garden. So part of me is an adventurer. So these worlds were very important to me. So I didn't just see the world as being what was in front of me, if you see what I mean, in the visionary. What could I see around me? It was also what I felt and what I could see inside me. So that was a great impact on me, and my childhood was really lovely. I had a lovely childhood, and the influences in that childhood certainly helped me to choose the path again. And of course, as any child, I drew all the time. It's what children do. They draw. They're creative, very creative, naturally creative, without any sort of hang-ups about being so. You know, they don't feel like somebody's going to tell them off when they're very, very young. They just do it. So you could say that I am still that child, you know, and I keep that strongly within me. So this is quite I could talk for a very long time on this. So what I'll do is I'll skip a little bit and I'll go to the next bit when I sort of grew up. Well, if I've grown up yet, that is. In some ways I have, of course. Shall we say that I go into the adulthood? So I always drew, and then you know you leave school, get a few jobs, you go to college, maybe university, bits and bobs. So I did all these bits and bobs, and I never really finished anything. You know, I never really got the job I wanted, and I went to university for a year. And I left university. So I did things in bits. And then I realized when I was about 20, that my passion is my art. So I developed that passion, and I developed it into my living, which takes a lot of hard work and a lot of time. You know, we're not talking a few weeks or months, we're talking a few years, really. So then I started to draw my living from that, just so I can have somewhere to live, some food, etc. The basics. And then when that started to happen, I began to realize that there was a deeper purpose to all this, a real profound calling. And the reason I was producing my art was because of this deep, profound calling inside of me, which is core to my artwork. So, in a very brief sort of resume, that's it.
That's wonderful, and it shows that, because that's exactly what you brought me back into, those memories. And I think so many people are in need of being able to find those memories of that exploration, that inquisitiveness inside us that we have when we're children, that we should stay connected to be given our greatest guidance completely. And especially for me, your drawings that are the trees with the faces inside them, and nature having faces, and the creatures. I think you have a book of those characters, and that, for me, that moved me the most. There's a book called Miss Hickory, and as a child I read that book, and she was a little piece, I think, of an apple tree or a hickory tree, but there's something else in there with apples, I don't remember. But and nature being alive was very important to me. So I thank you for that. And obviously that is where humanity should be, holding on to that space. But the ability to create that in art and music the way you do is is very special. So thank you.
Well, no, the thing about picking up on the point you've just mentioned there about faces in nature and the connection, it's a natural thing for us to do. It's a natural thing for us to, when we look at something, is to see, in a sense, ourselves reflected back, or our humanity reflected back, because we are humans, of course, but also we are nature. So, of course, everything has got to have a category, like a bird is a bird, or a tree is a tree, a human is a human. But it's all nature too. So really, all these different different parts of nature are just a beautiful blossoming of nature in different formats. It's really quite beautiful when you think about it, So it's no wonder that we see, and this has always happened. It's not just my art. It's in many ways, but we see ourselves reflected back in nature, even though it might be something different to us. At core, it's the same. So we find familiarities, like we find familiarities in other humans when we look at a person's face, we see similarities, we can connect with that, and that's the same with nature.
Yes, and you're even bringing my inner self into a little bit different type of reflection. I do read signs and omens in nature, but I haven't quite thought of it as deep as you just worked at there. All of a sudden, I even went deeper into that emotional feeling of being that aspect of nature and being one with that more. So that even brought me a little bit deeper as a reflection, it already being something that I have at one time been perhaps in that form, and am still connected to that sense of self. So that's really lovely. Yeah.
It's compassion, you see. If we have compassion for someone else, we understand from their viewpoint and how they see the world too. So it's the same with, like I say, with anything. If you look at something compassionately and try and see it as it lives in its world, then you understand it much better, and you understand yourself much better too. It's a really beautiful thing. It's like looking in a mirror through somebody else's eyes, you could say.
Yes, Yes. Exceptionally healing. Very, very healing. That's exactly what I feel from your work. A very strong resonance of healing by going back into that space so where we can sort of shed all of the different layers of self that are added on, that are farther away from this true inner spark of energy that is alive like this. I love the references to nature is painting itself in harmony and balance all the time. So nature source itself is the true source of balance that we should be connected into for guidance, and it will happen in this synchronistic flow. It will paint itself if we tune back in, and that's what I'm feeling from your work. As you had expressed about yourself, that you said that you paint harmony and balance and beauty because that is what nature is. Yes, that is the first original imprint here. That's the desire.
Yes. Sorry, do go on.
Oh, and just that your work captures that. And you have named your art Art of the Sublime to capture. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's difficult to have a title for artwork, I find. Of course, we need categories of artwork. So we have, things like Renaissance, all sorts of different things throughout history. Art now is there's many categories in art, and it's very difficult. I mean, another word is visionary, which I quite like. Visionary sort of started in a way officially with William Blake, who did very visionary pictures, and that sort of carried on. There's a lot of visionary artists now, but I like it, but I don't feel entirely in there, because I have differences too. So the reason for the art of sublime is because sublime means, the beauty, the wonder in life, the profundity. So it's not necessarily that my art is sublime, but it's my art is trying to capture the sublime. That's really where it came from. So I was trying to think of something unique to express. So this has come up for me, but it's very difficult to categorize things, and we do need categories so we can understand where things came from historically in all sorts of different ways, psychologically too. So that's the reason for the art of sublime, that it's life is sublime, and I'm trying to capture it in my artwork as best as I can. Really, I'm just a devotee of the wonder of life, and in my small way, I try and show how wonderful it is. And one of your categories of your art, which you do have listed on your website page, in which when I went to, I was even more in awe when I was able to read about all of the different areas that you work in and the variety of artworks that you do. So let's start with maybe your category called Visionary Nature Series. Can you tell us about that series of artwork? Yes, yeah. So the visionary nature, yes, that's. I suppose it does kind of flow into the art of sublime as well. The visionary nature started. Goodness me, when did I start? That must be 15, 16 years ago when I started to do that style. If I may just talk about what just came before that, and then it helps to link into that. So I started that about 15, 16 years ago. But just before, I'll just explain what sort of visionary nature is. It's big sort of strong, colourful paintings of nature that have very strong designs, but obviously you can still tell what the subject matter is in it. And so for instance, I'll paint a picture called Birdsong. With this picture, I depicted the birds singing around the dawn, and so I had to try and show how birdsong looked, which is not easy. It's the most beautiful thing in the entire world. So how do I show birdsong on a canvas visually? So I use patterns, and in those patterns I use dots and bright colours. So that's one example, for instance. So it's like that. It's usually things that happen in nature, experiences that I had, and I painted it, trying to understand what it meant and just trying to do it as beautifully as possible. But before that, my painting was quite different. So I really got into my artwork by painting Tolkien and fantasy. As you remember from the beginning of the conversation, The Hobbit, my father reading The Hobbit to me was a great impact, and I started to draw that style of artwork and cartoons as a child. And then I started to develop the Tolkien style and fantasy style when I was in my late teens and early 20s. And these were very detailed, very illustrative pictures. So, for instance, one of them, picture of Gandalf, and he's walking through a forest, a great big oak tree is behind him, silver birches, and it's incredibly detailed. So this was, I was very inspired by the Pre-Raphaelites, which was a group of 19th century English artists who painted phenomenal pictures and were very, very detailed. So I absolutely loved that style. So I got in my sort of mid-20s doing this style, and I thought, I love this, but I want something more. I want something deeper. And then the style of this visionary nature paintings kind of exploded on me, shall we say. I've been searching for it for a long time in pilgrimages in nature and pilgrimages in myself. And then the difference in styles between the two was huge, because I knew I had to break out. And it wasn't just gradually, getting out, but it was a huge, explosion of me changing this style to really show this deep profundity inside me, which the fantasy art that I loved, I felt it was restricting this. So this is why the stylistic change was so huge, and also it was very, very important too, and it was a real awakening for me, because as you might know, when you do a pilgrimage, whatever that pilgrimage may be, physical pilgrimage, a pilgrimage within, after you have finished the pilgrimage and created something, been somewhere, it is then that you realize what the pilgrimage was about. And that is exactly what happened with the artwork. And creativity is an extremely important thing, and it is a pilgrimage. It is definitely a pilgrimage, and sometimes you have to change a pilgrimage to really go on the one that calls you.
Yes, that was wonderful. I so agree with you, and I see that the beauty is in just following the impulses and that unknowing what it is going to be, so that we have that childlike reaction to, we find it just by continuing to be impulsed by that nature's feeling. So pilgrimages are a very important aspect of you creating your work then.
Oh, yes, very much so. Like I said, going back to those visionary nature paintings that you've mentioned, they all came about through experiences. So a lot of them involve animals. There's quite a few depicting deer, for instance. Deer, for me, symbolized a wild freedom and a gentleness that I adored. And so I painted deer quite a lot. And I thought of deer as being a spirit animal, to use a phrase. So because of the symbolization that they gave me of freedom, wild, gentleness, profundity. There's something so magical about seeing a deer in the wild because they're extremely quiet. You chance upon them, so you're walking, let's say you're walking through a woodland, you kind of glance up and there's a deer looking at you. It's probably thinking, who's this human making all this noise? And you kind of stare into each other's eyes for maybe only a few seconds, but it seems like an eternal moment. And then the deer will usually run away, but so silently. And then it'll leap over a wall or a fence, a really high one, and it does it so gracefully. And that to me is so magical and so beautiful, so profound. And so something like that happens to you. And you think, I have to paint this. I have to understand why that is. And so I would go away, draw out some designs, struggle with that, trying to get the real raw emotion that I felt. And as I drew it, I always draw my paintings to begin, you see. I always do a design. And as I draw these designs, knowledge comes to me. So I have the experience. I take the experience back with me to my home. I start to draw out this experience. And as I draw it out, I understand what was happening. Knowledge comes to me. And it's knowledge from within me and also knowledge from without. And the two combine beautifully and come to me. And then I draw out the picture I want, make the design, and then I paint that. So the whole thing is quite beautifully profound. And I like to use the word beautiful. You might have noticed that. I say beautiful a lot because beautiful for me isn't a surface word or a shallow word. It actually is a deeply significant word. And I think beautiful is where great knowledge is, because beautiful can mean, when you wake up in the morning and you go out very early, it's winter, there's frost by the riverbank. The sun's out and it's taken away the frost in the field, say, but by the riverbank where it's a bit more shaded, where the older trees lean over, the sun hasn't got in there yet, and the frost is still on that ground, and you look at that ground, and then you look deeper, and you see a fallen leaf, and you see all the veins of the leaf covered in this beautiful frost. Now that's beautiful, but that's profound, because it's making you look deep into that leaf and into the land, and then you're gaining knowledge from that. So, I love that word beautiful, and I will happily use it a lot.
And the leaf is a very strong aspect of much of your drawings and illustrations. So it is very strong for those who are just beginning here and first to get to know your work. Thank you for that. And did a category follow that, or did the category after Visionary Nature series display itself? So what was the progress that happened from there? What did you next go into? I know you have future visions on your website as a category, and also drawings and illustrations. Of course, in those drawings and illustrations have a great deal of the beautiful leaf work in your work. So did you move into a different category? Did they all come together?
Well, it's some things. Sometimes some things run together, so it's not one following the other. It's not always a linear. It's more that they're all together, all grouped. So I like a lot of things. I'm fascinated by many things. So, for instance, the future visions that you mentioned are sort of metallic grey paintings, are futuristic visions that I had. Now, these visions are completely come completely from within me, but I use stimuli to produce them. So for the stimuli for these future visions was music, sort of visionary electronic music. I like lots of music, but this strand of music fit perfectly well with the pictures themselves. So I would listen to this music. I don't mean upbeat dance music, not like that, but more subtly electronic music, for instance. So I would listen to this. I would dive deeply into those realms, and I would draw onto a blank page, and I would let the visions come out, raw visions. This can be termed automatic drawing. For instance, that's a popular term. Basically, what it means is you draw onto the page with a pencil without any subject before you or without any preconceived idea of what you're going to be creating. You just let it happen. Now, like I say, I use the music as a stimuli. So that led me towards doing these future visions. So the image would appear on the page, and how does that come about? It's quite a big mystery, but in a basic way, I started with shapes. Do you know when you're talking to someone on the phone or something like that, and you're doodling? Do you have that word over there, doodling? Do you use the word doodling? Yes. So when you're sort of doodling, you're putting your pen or your pencil on a piece of paper, and you're sort of unconsciously drawing shapes and all sorts of things on there. That's what I call doodling. Now that is incredibly powerful. And a lot of people might not realize this. And I teach a lot of workshops, and I get people doodling because it's a great way into things, because they're worried about how do we start, what do I do, And I just say, doodle, get that pencil on the paper and start to make shapes, start to let things appear. And if you let go a little bit of having to create something, so don't say, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to draw this, I'm going to draw that. Don't think that, but just think, oh, I'm just drawing. What's going to happen? And things start to emerge from this blank surface in front of you. Notice how I use the word emerge. So they emerge from that surface, because in a sense, you are uncovering them. They're kind of there already. And your unconscious is uncovering them on, we're using pencil and paper, say. So your unconscious is uncovering them, and they're taking form on that piece of paper in front of you. So if you think in that way, you begin to think, wow, where does this come from? Where does this vision come from? Isn't this fascinating? Because you are creating those shapes. You're physically moving your pen or pencil on that paper. So there is you in that. But also, these images are coming from somewhere else. So the two are coming together, and it's amazing. So a lot of my artwork does come that way, and those future visions especially did. So that's that one on the future visions. And then there's lots of other different styles, as you say. The illustrative work. I love drawing. I think drawing is the most underrated art form there is, and it often upsets me that it's not taught in as part of degree courses, I believe. I don't think drawing is very high up on the agenda there, and I can't understand that, because drawing is essential. It really, truly is essential. So it's very fascinating. All these different ways of creating.
Okay, and then you also have a category called the human condition. Can you tell us about that?
Mm-hmm. The human condition. Yes, I haven't done any of those for a little while, but they're very sort of stylistically real paintings of emotions. Human emotions. This is a very human-centered category. I'm just trying to think what's on there. There's a painting called "Innocence Carrying the Burden of Man's Greed." I don't know if you've seen that one. It's a one with a child in the center, and there's all these sort of horrific faces around her or him looking at them. It's based actually. It's based completely on a painting by Hieronymus Bosch.
Okay.
And the painting is, I think it's called Christ Carrying the Cross, and in that picture, Christ is central, and he's carrying the cross, and all these sort of horrific faces are looking at him and doing sort of misdeeds around him. So it's based on that. So what I'm depicting there is innocence carrying all these sort of, horrible things of humanity, like greed and gluttony and all sorts of things like that too. It took me a long time to do that picture. So that stylistically, it's very. If people think of Hieronymus Bosch's paintings, and you think of the realistic depictions of humans and human features, but then slightly characterized. So that if you've got a sort of mean character who's very mean in the sense of not charitable, you can pinch the nose on that, or pinch the lips, if you see what I mean. You can extend features, or you can reduce features to show the personality of that person. So that's what this picture is. It's a very realistic characterization. It took me a long. I think it must take me a good 200 hours, that painting.
200. Oh
yeah. Some of my work does take a long time. So that's that. I haven't done those for a while, but a lot of those pictures are based on Renaissance paintings. Actually, I've taken the theme and also the structural style and just changed it to what I wanted.
Yes, there's always an aspect of faith back to innocence in your work. So I like that there's a feeling in your work that it does not take the individual so much into a despair, but a concern. And it was similar, interesting feel that when you recently did Merlin, the first thing you notice is his strong, fierce eyes, his focus in his eyes. And then you noted the half smile he's also wearing. And I really like that about your work.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because that was really important on the picture. Shall I just describe the image first and then talk about that a little bit? Would that be good?
Yes, Perfect. Mm-hmm.
Well, this is the latest picture. I've just finished it the last couple of days, and it's a picture called Merlin, and it is based on Merlin the Wizard, and it's an ink drawing, so it's it's black and white drawing, and it's a very sort of realistic drawing, but stylistic as well. And this is one of 27 pictures I'm doing for a book called Visions of Albion, which I'm going to be publishing at the end of this year. So this is actually the 9th picture that I've produced. So I've got a lot of work to do on it still, and it will be, like I say, a book of 27 illustrations. Each illustration will have a very deep, in-depth description that I'm going to write on it, and there'll be a large introduction too on drawing in visionary states, where these images came from, the sort of history and mythology of the British Isles, which is what the book is based on, because the book is called Visions of Albion, and Albion is the very, very ancient name of the British Isles. If I can just briefly explain this little bit to you, because I know a lot of your listeners in the US will sometimes get confused with the UK, Britain, England. What does it mean? Why have they got all these different names? Well, the UK is the yes. I thought it would be yes. The UK stands for United Kingdom. So the United Kingdom is England, Scotland, and Wales. So and also we've got Northern Ireland in there as well. So that's a United Kingdom, and as the name suggests, a United Kingdom. It means all these different countries that live on the same landmass, apart from Ireland, are united into one kingdom. So, but that's quite recent. I don't think Scotland and Wales are very happy about that, to be honest. And so then if you think of the different places, you've got England, and then you've got Scotland, and you've got Wales. And everybody, I'm sure in the US, has a very romantic notion of Scotland, the Highlands and the mountains and the rocks, and it is very beautiful. So we've got the 3 separate countries there, and they are separate countries, even though they're on the same land mass. So now England, even though it's English, actually it comes from Anglo-Saxon, which were the Germans who invaded us a long, long, long time ago. So that's where England comes from. Scotland is from the Scotty tribe, which actually came from Ireland. And they're very interesting. Wales means foreigner. Now, the word Wales is from the Saxons, who when they were invited and invaded England, or as it was called then, Britain, they came to a part of, they came to where the old British were, and they called them Wala or Wali, which means foreigner. So that became Wales. So the actual ancient British of these lands is in Wales. So it's really quite a fascinating history. Now I've simplified that far too much, and it isn't that simple. It's much more complicated with twists and turns and routes that go around each other. It's not at all like that, but it's a very, very general picture. So, but before that, before Britain, these islands were called Albion, and they were called Albion by the Greeks, and I think by the Romans as well. I think it was both. So it was called Albion, and this is a beautiful name. So the book Visions of Albion looks at this beautiful history that we have going back a long, long way, thousands of years, but also perhaps more recent times as well. So things from that era I'm depicting in my book, and some of these are very historical, some are mythologies, but like all great mythologies are history. It's a story of history, and so the two entwine. So that's a very brief outline of the book. Sorry, I'm getting back to Merlin. If you ask me a question, I go into different tangents, so excuse me.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. It even brings more depth to your paintings and illustrations and drawings. So yes, please go on. Yes, I'm loving every second of it.
Oh, you're very kind. So Merlin. Now, you've probably heard of Merlin, and most people have heard of Merlin through The Wizard, and like you say, you've been watching the television series of Merlin, which I think was quite good actually. And of course, there's been many films recently. Television and films are our sort of modern storytelling equivalents. So it's still beautiful that we have these mediums to be able to find out about this great past that we have. So a lot of people might think of Merlin as being an archetypal wizard, someone with a pointy hat that casts spells in a way. So a bit like Gandalf from The Lord of the Rings, and I believe Gandalf was heavily influenced by the character of Merlin too. But it's not that simple. And in fact, there are historical figures that are documented in many medieval manuscripts that are based on Merlin. So the sort of modern day Merlin is Geoffrey of Monmouth in the Middle Ages wrote stories about King Arthur and about Merlin. And so this is when you hear the sort of, about Camelot and the Excalibur, etc. And he derived a lot of these from stories that are much older, and sort of put his twist on it, shall we say. He was a modern storyteller. He was a historian, but a lot of historians then were very, you could say, storytellers too. So they played around with the truth to make it fit what they wanted, and especially to grant them favours with the king or whoever was in power at the time.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating. Yeah. It's really good, and a lot of truths are in his writings too. But it's even fascinating to look back before Geoffrey Monmouth and find out about the two other Merlins, the historical Merlins that we have evidence for. This is really exciting. So there are more too, but I'm just going to pick on two. One of them was from Wales, and now excuse my pronunciation, but I think he was called Merfyn, which is like Merlin. But Geoffrey Monmouth didn't like the word mirth, which in Norman French means excrement. So so he changed that to Merlin. So, but also Merlin is a bird of prey, and he's associated with this bird of prey. And a lot of great characters were associated with an animal or a bird too, which is a very fascinating. I could do a whole radio program talking about that, but another time perhaps. So Merlin, the Welsh, the Welsh Merlin, wrote a lot of poetry, prophetic poetry, about things that would come to pass, and we have all that documented, and it's all written down. It's absolutely fascinating. And then there's another character from Lowland Scotland. Now, forgive my pronunciation again. I think it's Lailoken. He's called Lailoken. I think that's how you pronounce it. And he was perhaps a warrior. He certainly fought in a battle, and this battle took place sort of where the boundary of England and Scotland is now, and he saw all his friends killed, and he went mad, and he ran into the forest, and he gave up all his worldly belongings. He lived as nature. He communicated with the animals, the birds, trees, and through this trauma, perhaps found his real vocation, his real self, his deep soul. And what a character this is. So there's documents that perhaps people went to him for knowledge and advice, and they said that they would see him and he would babble words that didn't make any sense, and then suddenly profound truths would come out of his mouth. So we have this historical figure, and he is a historical figure. In fact, there's a grave in Scotland that you can go and see where he's supposedly buried. So there's all these magical, mystical, mythological, historical background to the character, because that makes him so interesting. So how do I go about drawing someone like that? And there's lots of information I haven't mentioned about him too. But in my drawing, I'll describe the drawing now. I have him central. He's staring out at you. As you rightly said, he's got these very strong eyes. And you look at his strong eyes. But as you look, you sort of come down the face and you see his sort of half smile. Now, what that's telling you is he's got authority. Who are you? Who are you to come here? You do know who I am. And then you see his smile and you think, oh, wait a minute. He's authority, but he likes you and he's glad you're here. Almost like a father figure. Like an archetypal father figure. And that's what I feel about Merlin. He is this person in authority that you seek out, that you're a bit afraid of, but then you love too. So you have that dual thing going on. So that's what I've tried to show. And then on his head, he's got oak leaves. And the oak is very mixed up with druids. So he's very druidical. And oak, the root word of oak can mean druid too, knowledge. He has a staff, which the bird Merlin is sat upon, and on his staff is inscribed ancient Welsh, one of his poems that he talked about. And there's lots of other things in the picture. He's pointing at two dragons. These two dragons in one of the legends of Merlin, the Geoffrey Monmouth legends, but it's probably very much older than that, symbolize the Saxons, who, remember, invaded Britain, and the British, the ancient British. And the white dragon is the Saxons, and the red dragon is the British. And one of the legends of Merlin is there was a king or a warlord in Britain called Vortigern, who was trying to build this fort on this beautiful craggy hill, which I've been to. You can visit it. And he kept building this fort, and every time it got nearly done, it collapsed, and it kept happening. So he was getting a bit fed up about this. So he went to his advisors and said, "What are we going to do? What are we going to do?" And they said, "Right, we need to bring a young man who we can sacrifice to make this work." So they went out to find a young man, and this young man was Merlin. He would have been probably 15 or 16 at the time. That's possibly. So he came to the site, and because he was a very magical person already then, he saw that the reason why the fort kept collapsing was because these two dragons underneath were fighting. And so he told Vortigern this, and he got the dragons out, and they went fighting each other, these dragons, but they went away. But he said, these symbolize, in a nutshell, these symbolize the Saxons and the Britons. It looks like the red dragon is getting beat up, but eventually the red dragon will win over the white dragon. And remember how I said that the ancient Britons are the Welsh? if you go to Wales now, their flag is a red dragon. So it's really beautiful, isn't it? So the rest of the picture is in a wood. There's all sorts of various creatures and different things happening. It's very stylistic, but it's very, you can understand what's happening in the drawing as well. So there it is in a nutshell, a very long nutshell.
A very divine nutshell. I loved it. And you also have a great deal of hidden areas. Not exactly hidden, but it's a picture that draws you into it. And then there are also other characteristic animals within your picture.
Oh, yes, there is. For one, there's the wild boar, the sow. Now, this is fascinating because the sow, the wild boar sow, is in Mervyn, the Welsh, in his poems, he addresses them, a lot of them, to the pig or the sow, and you think, well, why would a wise sage talk to a pig? It's not your everyday sort of wise thing to do, you would think. But if we go back and look at some of the ancient writings that we have, the sow, the wild boar, the female wild boar, was seen to have great wisdom and also to live between the two worlds. So the world that we inhabit and the other world. So he was addressing this creature of this world and that world too. So that's a really significant part there. And I've been studying some ancient tales that we have called the Mabinogi, or as they've been termed now, the Mabinogian. And the first four tales are called the four branches of the Mabinogi. And these were written down in the Middle Ages, but they're much older than that. And they would have been oral tales. So, and in these tales is beautiful mythologies of the land, and also they're extremely the tales that teach. So you read them as a story to begin with, and then as you read them again, you see that these stories are telling you something, like all great mythologies do. And then you start to study it more and more and more, and 1,000 times you could read through these and 1,000 different things, and they're beautiful, absolutely staggeringly beautiful. And it's so wonderful that we have these preserved here, and that's wonderful. The sad side is that not many people know about this. So I'm going to say to everybody, please buy the Tales of the Mabinogian, because they're beautiful. And there are many tales, and a lot of these tales mention King Arthur, and there's some of the first, the first time that King Arthur is mentioned in ancient writings too. So it's fascinating, but they're beautiful, and so the sow and the wild boar feature heavily in these tales, as do other creatures as well.
Yes, I do also have some medicine cards, which are animal cards here that are Celtic, and they have the boar featured in there. The sow featured for its very motherly essence. So in a very soft, nurturing, and compassionate energy. In a sense, it would be similar to how they look at the cow in different cultures, but the sow, definitely, it's a very beautiful energy. Yes, thank you. Well, what we will do here then, in summary of that, I'm going to take a short commercial break, and also I want everyone to know, as Edward is also a musician, and I am going to play also a piece of his called the Six Flower Piercer. Is that the name of it, Edward?
It's just the flower piercer or flower piercer.
Oh, it's okay. Flower piercer. Okay. Do you want to give us any information about that? I'm going to do 2 brief commercials, and I'm going to play that after the commercial. So if you'd like to give us an introduction to this piece.
Yes, of course. I've recorded 3 albums now. 2 of them are solo classical guitar albums. I compose music as well, and so they're all my compositions on these albums. So this piece, Flower Piercer, was inspired by a trip to Costa Rica that I did in Central America. Really beautiful place. And a flower piercer is a beautiful little bird that goes to flowers and gets the nectar from, etc. And it's just such a beautiful name, the Flower Piercer. So I wrote a very sort of romantic piece that's inspired by Latin American music.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So this will be about, with his music being played, a little over just about 5.5 minutes. And we'll start with that. And then everyone, we will return in that time frame. Okay.
Feminine Frequency Radio Network hosts shows 7 days a week. Call in to listen live 929-477-1183 and dial 1 to connect to the studio to ask a question, or listen online via blogtalkradio.com/Feminine Frequency Radio Network. Organic Frequency Radio Show is 1.5 hour live chat with Stephanie and Oksana and their lovely guests about the nature of existence and holistic way of living here and now, and perhaps even after. Join us every Monday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Time. Call-in number to listen live is 929-477-1183, and to ask a question, press 1 to connect to the studio. Our guests share their stories and walking path of their healing, along with services that they have developed and packaged for the rest of the world to experience and benefit from. We're here to hold a space for an exchange of experiences for the purpose of evolvement and expansion of consciousness.
and welcome back, everyone. And Edward, we still have you here?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, perfect. That was beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I do not have a way to there might have been some static while that was playing. This is Blog Talk Radio. It's the level it is. I don't have an equalizer here. And as it was playing, I just became more relaxed and more content, more grounded. Thank you for that. It was very beautiful.
You're very welcome.
I just had a little trip to Costa Rica, so I may not be there for a little while. So I meant that through your music.
Oh, I see.
got to go. Oh. I got to go through your music there. That's about as close as I might get for a little while. So I enjoyed that.
Well, it's the best airport to get there.
Yes, it was wonderful. And yes, the very exciting stories of Merlin. As you were talking, there was I had just watched the episode about Merlin's father, who literally was the expression of who you were talking about as a person. So obviously, the shows are are written upon the stories that were in the past, and that is in essence a very powerful story for especially the males, in what this references for what it can move, both the male aspect of the feminine and the male, within the male form, to return to nature in this way. In these Druid studies, again, the trainings that you are involved in that I read about on your webpage, and to revive that, I really like the book, The Way of Weird, and weird, of course, being spelled W-Y-R-D, and how the people of the past lived so closely in tune with reading these frequencies, feeling them, being part of them, honoring them. So, yes, we all need this wizard part of ourselves as Merlin in his connection to nature, and especially the sows. So that is a beautiful reference there, to be rebirthed again and us reconnected, something that we lose the connection to, but upon returning to it, realize how much more stimulating, truthful, and fruit-bearing that connection is than the connections that society in some ways has moved into, being away from nature and not supporting it in the way and nurturing. So you also are both a poet, songwriter, and musician. Everyone, I have asked Edward if he would read us some of his poetry. So if you're prepared at this time, Edward, could you begin this segment of the show with reading something that you have written?
Yes, of course. Okay, I'll do a little one, shall I? A little poem to begin?
Sure.
Okay, since we've been in the woodland with Merlin, I'll read a little poem called Within a Wood. It's only a little. So, here we go. Within a wood, it seems the dreams walk with thoughts at play, upon my mind, upon my sight, and hold me in their sway. The beech trees stand upon the ridge, silver grey their skin, with naked roots that twist and fall, and hide the shadows within. The elegant birch descends a hill with oak trees gnarled and green, till they reach the river floor, where alder now is seen. This is where the dreams are weaved that keep me on this path. This is where my body wanders with heart and mind that laugh.
Oh, boy. That was very moving and very touching.
Thank you.
And also you, just in referencing the energy there, that I'm sure much of the audience was able to feel. You are also a Reiki practitioner. I also do that healing work and am a Reiki practitioner. And that's, I'm in being very empathic and tuning in. I didn't want to come back.
Well,
I kind of wanted to stay there.
I'm glad you came.
Not for the sake of not finishing the show, but it's similar in that space of doing Reiki with someone and then watching them go into that. This is the same energy that we're seeking. That is exactly that place. And I felt you so much in there. So I thank you for that. That's very healing. I'm still feeling those energies. So yes, it's a space that we should be living in more. So I just had a healing. Thank you.
The thing about all these disciplines. I mean, Reiki is very beautiful. I'm very profound too. But it's it's a lot of these things are just letting go a little bit of what we think we should be doing and letting intuition come into us. Now, I'm not saying that we should be led entirely by intuition, but what we should do is let intuition chance to breathe, and then we become aware of this intuition, which is a very, very deep and profound knowledge, and look at what this intuition is telling us. And we don't necessarily have to go with it fully, but we might find that there's some unbelievable wisdom and knowledge in there, and we should listen to it too. And we often push this down. And when you do something like Reiki, that is a very intuitive thing, isn't it? I mean, it's completely intuitive. But when you start doing more and you let go, you let the intuition come up, then you start to use the knowledge in this intuition to help you do it as well. And I don't just mean to do Reiki on someone, but also to receive it as well.
Precisely. That was a master class right there. And, as a teacher of Reiki also, very true. And what is being expressed in your art is the opportunity, and your music, the opportunity, your poetry also, to move back into that space of unknowing, of not knowing, of not having the answer, and of allowing. And very true. Reiki, in its best aspect, is to completely release any expectations, any linear thoughts, we move through different stages, as you do with your art, which I loved you explaining, very similar to the healing process. We simply begin and we allow ideas to present themselves, but then we also have this combination of something emerging along with something we already know, and letting it happen. I loved when you said letting it breathe. I will be borrowing that. And I would definitely, I will refer to who said it first, but I will be borrowing that for sure.
It's not mine.
And when you also spoke about listening to intuition, it is also, of course, a very refined level that we work with in order to determine intuition's voice. But true, it's not ever one direct route that is coming to us in information. It is this beautiful symphony of different aspects, as you nicely described, both external and internal, and then coming up into unfolding itself there. So the space of Reiki in that will unfold. It will simply reveal itself for what is needed and allowing. I especially try to teach a space of not having any fear or doubt. It's almost mostly just a faith space, and that space of art is the same. I do not have the developed level of drawing, so I very deeply respect the different menu, that you use to do your work in, that you've developed with art. It fascinates me because I don't work in that space. I work a little more with feeling and words. I could put words together and reach that raw feeling space of description that way. And so to watch your artwork, even music, is not a level that I've moved into in being able to create, from a musical instrument as you do. So I highly appreciate that. It's beautiful.
Well, thank you. That's very kind. And if I may say something on that, it's a really fascinating thing, this, for me. I like to study psychology as well. I find it really fascinating. And and also, you know how we use sayings, don't we? Something happens or something, and we use a saying to describe it. For instance, so for instance, I'll say, people will say, I don't know, I can't draw. A lot of people say, I can't draw to me. That is true if you don't draw. But like anything in the world, if you do something and you work on it, you can reach certain levels. So we're all very creative beings. That's what a human is. A human is creative. It's a natural thing. So what we do, we have this beautiful, profound uniqueness in us, which actually it's unique, but also it's similar to everyone else. This is a beautiful thing when I run an art class and people start to draw. They have their unique way of doing it. But then it's similar to other people's work in the message. It's really fascinating. But we have this deep, wonderful soul, okay? And we can, and to express that soul, we can learn different techniques of being able to show it. So I do art, music, writing, etc. And people do it in different ways, whatever that way is. But everybody is an artist. That is completely true. For me, if I may,
I agree,
I'll put my neck on the line. Put me on the block, chop it off, whatever. But I'm going to say that
I agree with you so much.
Yeah. But everybody is an artist. You see, there's no question. But the thing is, you have to work at it. So a lot of people say, they'll see me work and say, oh, well, you have a talent, you have a gift. You have a gift. And which is a very nice thing. They've been very complimentary, but I've had to work 8 hours a day on that gift, shall we say, to make it something. So we all have a gift. We all definitely have this gift because it's just who we are. Our souls are our gift, who we are. You just need to put a lot of time and work and effort into creating things from. You need to put a lot of time and effort to develop the skills so you can show this gift inside you. Now, you might do it in little bits, incremental bits. So you might do a little bit of drawing, and if you work on your drawing, you can start to show it, in little bits, and it's still beautiful and still lovely. But the more you practice that art, the better you get technically at it, of course. It's like anything. If you're going to be an accountant, you don't just turn up and be an accountant. You have to spend many, 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 many hours training, and then you have to spend many hours of, getting it wrong sometimes, getting it right, whatever, to get to that thing. So everybody is an artist in whatever medium it is. You just need to practice that medium to be able to show it their deep souls. That's genuinely what I believe and what I've seen too. So, and this is good because it shows that everybody has it in them. It shows that everybody is this unique, beautiful person. But you just need to work on it. So it's quite, I've simplified it, but it is simple. It is simple.
Mm-hmm. No, I very much agree that anyone's self-expression that they work at and have a passion for is their art. And
Sure.
Those who work at it and develop it well have that desire to, and I think everyone should bring whatever their harmonious piece of the puzzle is to the forefront. And sometimes we just need a little bit of help where we can help each other tune back into those pieces that we're missing that get us there to really feeling what our passion is. But once someone has that passion ignited and they stay, on the journey and don't get distracted too much, and distractions are okay. We learn a little and then come back. But that is their artistic expression.
The thing about learning anything and doing anything is it's difficult. So now we have aversion to that word difficult because we have associations with it. But if you think of difficult as being a landscape you're walking through, so you've got to get, you're walking through this landscape, okay, and it's a varied landscape. So sometimes you're just walking over grass and it feels, it's beautiful, there's no effort. You just start, you're sort of gliding. And sometimes you come to a mountain and you've got to climb up the mountain. And then sometimes you're walking along all happily and splash, you're in a bog, a mire. Okay, you're up to your waist in bog and you have to go through all this swamp, basically. And you've just walked 10 miles without any effort. And then suddenly you're in this swamp and you have to walk, in American it'd be, say you walk 10 kilometers and then suddenly you're in this swamp and you have to walk 1 kilometer. And that 1 kilometer might take 5 times as much as the 10 kilometers previously. But when you come out of that swamp, you realize, wow, I have learned 10 times more than I did in the previous 10 kilometers when it was easy. In this difficult period where I wasn't necessarily enjoying it at the time, I've come out and I think, I am so glad. I am so glad that I fell in that swamp because I have gained so much knowledge, skills, abilities, confidence through going through that. So if you then start to realize that what your life is like that, your creative life is like that, it's a varied landscape, and that in some of this landscape, it takes a long time to get through. But if you accept that, then you welcome it too. So, yes, sometimes it's not straightforward, but that's wonderful because when you come to an obstacle, it's great because you learn so much in that obstacle. And
you're, strengthened more afterwards, have unique new abilities you didn't know you had, a brand new sensation to explore. Yes. And it is something that people are trying to bring others to understand that during those difficult times, yes, not to perceive it as a failure, but as an experience. Not just a failure, an experience. It's not a failure. It's an experience. No. So we haven't brought... Yeah.
Sorry, do go on.
So the aspect in working with others and clients very often, because of some of the types of thinking that have come in with healing work, in that we are supposed to be manifesting more joy and happiness in our lives. And that sort of inadvertently has people looking back at sort of regarding places they are in or places they have been as times of failure, because they now realize that everything that they're thinking of, in a sense, is moving them to their next experience. And it is a very careful area to walk through. So I like the emphasis here on that. I loved, the reference of looking at it as a landscape walking through, and how much stronger. It puts a nice gentle blanket over it, because the truth is, it is just experience. And the experiences are very important, because we wouldn't know that aspect of ourselves unless we moved through that space.
Very much so. Imagine if life was just just this floating without anything. We wouldn't have any stories to tell, would we?
We wouldn't, and which is very interesting, and we will definitely talk again. And since you love psychology so much, we will talk about the essences and forces and psychology of the marriages of the energies within everything that you've talked about today that are parts of your artwork, and sort of a place of how we perhaps did move out of the garden and into a diversity of experiences. And so there is a little bit in there to remember some of our choices and for what reasons, as we are making our way back, since we have gone into, as your picture described, a little bit of the more extreme expressions of the human plight. And in our reverse engineering and making our way back through the swamps, in a sense, it's better to reference it in more of a joyful expression or a matter-of-factly expression, instead of placing those extra parts of shame and guilt and blame. Someone recently wrote to me and was talking about their struggle with duality and the different energy fields that pulls them into, from one energy to another, of diversity, opposing energies. And my response was just to accept it. So let go of the resistance or the labeling of it. And sometimes that little space is forgotten. It's so easy for us to have a blame and shame feeling when we are walking through hard times. And, my theme is always embrace your story and own your story, and own it in a sense of being proud of how strong you were to walk through these spaces. And it definitely shifts the energy field of how we're looking at it. And everything here we're experiencing is how we are looking at it. So as we introduced this segment, we played a piece of your music that you had written. And you also were saying that as a musician and songwriter, you have released 3 albums so far. Was that correct?
Yes, that's right, yes.
Okay, can you tell us about that?
What, the albums, the names, and that, and about the process, you mean?
You either or, if you want to go through some of the process of it coming forward in its development. So, for instance, was music as much an aspect of you early on, say from your 20s when you went into art as a career, or did this development come a little bit later?
Well, the playing of an instrument was probably my late teens when I started to play the classical guitar. I love the classical guitar. But I love old music. and I love such a variety of music. So music has always been in my life from a child, and so my father would play a lot of classical music at home, and then I had an older brother, Richard, who would play sort of pop and rock music. So and he's 4 years older than me. So when I was 9 years old, I would get music from a 13-year-old. So it's quite it went straight into that. And then my father was playing classical music too. So I love all music, you see. I really do. So but the playing of music happened after I left school, so late teens, and then I started to work very hard on the classical guitar, and I just developed it, and I used to teach it, and I just used to play a lot of music that was already written. I didn't write so much then, and it was only in my sort of late 20s I started to compose, and then really in the last 7 years I've composed a lot for the solo guitar, but also I've written songs too, and I've got one of the 3 albums is I did with my partner, and we wrote our own songs, and we sing it and play guitars and other instruments on this, and so that was lovely. That came out recently, and then the other 2 albums, like I say, are for solo classical guitar. So music, I mean, all the arts are all connected, but they have their own beautiful nuances, and I love playing music and composing music. I love it, and it's the art to me, I think, is number one, because I've always done it, and it seems to be me. So the music too, I've had to work very hard at it, but it's in a way it's something I can go in and just enjoy as well. I enjoy my art. I enjoy drawing, of course, and painting, but there's that beauty to the music as well. I think, this is just fun. so that's good too. So I wanted to create some albums, and they've only come out in the last couple of years. I knew it was a missing ingredient in my life. So, and then when you do one album, like anything in life, the next follows very quickly, and you when you've got over doing that first thing, like your first book or your first album or first exhibition or whatever it be, when you've done that, then you know how to do it. And then you don't think about, I wonder if someday I could do this, and how would I go about doing it? You just do it. So yes, that's the music, very briefly.
Wonderful. And then you had talked about here and brought us into how you do workshops, and you do a variety of workshops. Not only it appeared to be different types of workshops as a freelancer, where people can bring you into their business or maybe even home location to do workshops, however it works. But you also work with a variety of different people. So you also work with people with disabilities and illnesses and Alzheimer's and such. Can you tell us about your workshops?
Yes, as you say, I do a variety, and I don't. I think anyone can produce art because, like we've talked about, it's a natural thing. So I think the youngest person I've taught was 3 years old, and the oldest person I've taught was 92. So, and all backgrounds, all abilities, and like you say, people struggling with Alzheimer's, for instance, is the most beautiful work you can do. It's so beautiful and so rewarding, and well, it just sort of fills me up when I think about things like that too. So, and it varies on what the subject is, but usually it's about self-expression. And so, for instance, I've got a few workshops coming up this year, which are very varied. May I just talk about them? Would that be okay?
Absolutely, yes. Mm-hmm.
So the next workshop is it's coming up next month, and it's based on the drawings, like Merlin. As I was talking about my Visions of Albion book. So we're looking at learning techniques of pencil and pen drawing, and how we can summon up, shall we say, these visions within ourselves, and then put them onto the page using lots of techniques, lots of very basic techniques. When you get people worry about how to draw, how to start, but if you get basic techniques within half an hour, you can be producing some nice work. Just get those techniques, and then get rid of worries. A lot of when I teach children, they don't care mostly, apart from some of the older ones. But the younger ones don't care; they just dive in. Yeah, I have to stop them. Just stop a minute. Let me explain what's happening, because they're already there drawing. now, when it comes to adults, you can see them worried, because a lot of them have stories from the past about why they gave up drawing. Usually, someone, a parent or a teacher, has said something, and they might have said something that was in all innocence, and it wasn't really anything wrong, but because they were very young, it sunk in, and it sort of blighted their creativity all through their life. It's very fascinating. So with adults, usually, we talked about doodling earlier. I get them doodling. I get them get rid of all the worries. Don't think about it. Nobody's judging you. I give them permission to draw, and there they go. So that's the first workshop. The second one is a very fascinating one. I'm doing this with a good friend of mine called Luigi Schiambarella. Lovely Italian name. He's a Lancashire lad like me, so he doesn't sound very Italian. But we run a course together that uses sound technology. So sound waves. So you wear headphones, and you have a sound wave coming from the left side and from the right side. The sound waves join up, and it creates these states of mind which are stunning. So that's called hemi-sync. Hemi-sync. It's really fascinating. So he works for the Monroe Institute, and there's one in America, the Monroe Institute, which you can go to. You can study using this hemi-sync sound waves. You can do lucid dreaming, etc. there. But Luigi runs it in the UK, and I do some courses with him where we combine that technology with creativity, art creativity. We put the two together. Oh, it's phenomenal.
Very nice.
Beautifully
phenomenal.
Oh,
yes.
yeah. I highly recommend. I mean,
yes.
I'm very biased, but I highly recommend looking at that, because it's such a beautiful experience. Really beautiful and very profound too. So that's one. And then I've got some others coming up, but another one I'm not really running this, but I'm doing a bit of art on it, and it's run by two good friends of mine, and it's using the oak essences, the essences of oak tree, oak leaves, and it's a retreat. You fast and you take the essences, and sort of things come up, different beautiful things come up, and then I'm going to run a bit of art with the participants, and also I'm going to play music while they go into these different states as well. So that's beautiful, and that's on my. They're all on my website as well. So there's 3 examples, for instance.
Oh, very nice. Very inspirational. I am a dream analyst and am very familiar with Robert Monroe's work, and have experienced the hemi-sync. Yeah. And ideas were flowing. I'm a little bit of a seer in the dream plane, so I'm able to go into the different piercing of the veils into different dimensions when I intend it, and sometimes it's also just happening spontaneously. But as you were talking about your workshop, I was feeling myself putting something together sometime as a healer also, and working with this in the same way that you are working with it there, by also having an artist there. In like a workshop or retreat setting where it's a little bit longer. So that's wonderful. I had seen the third one with the oak essences, and I didn't exactly catch that you were involved with that. And so that the audience understands now, do you do these locally only, or is this something that you are going to different even countries to do? I know that your artwork has gone all over to different countries. It has been sold worldwide. And are you doing workshops? These workshops are primarily local?
Well, at the moment they are in the UK, but of course, if anybody wants me to come and do some workshops elsewhere, Europe, America, wherever, then I'd be very happy to. Of course, it's the cost of getting there is always always a slight thing. But yes, no, I'd absolutely love to, because I like your good self, I connect with lots of people outside of my country, and especially a lot of people in the US actually. Lots of people. It's a real blessing to be able to connect with you and talk with you about these wonderful subjects. It really is. So yes, I would love to. I'd love to go to the US and do some workshops and all sorts of things like that. That'd be lovely. Yes. Okay.
Oh,
I'm
yes,
up for it.
The US would love to have you, and certainly if that flow crosses my path, you would be my primary first for the artist to be present, most certainly. And it certainly has a feel of here growing, and especially for its significance and importance for what you're doing. So thank you. Now, I wanted to ask, and it's probably difficult for you to pinpoint it, but do you possibly have a favorite painting or drawing, or are there a couple of ones that still remain with you as something? I know each one is probably significant for a time frame, and I just want to say here too that I really do love, because I have that kind of a feeling within myself, the way you sort of are expressing in you're painting a book, you're drawing a book of characters right now. And even that you're doing 27 characters for Visions of Albion, that's very significant that it's 27
yes.
and being a 9. Yes, also a numerologist. Yeah, about 20 years of study, and these are the articulate areas that I specifically have a feeling for, so very unique. But I love that you do categories like that. I am enjoying doing my radio shows in categories so that people understand there's a going to be a certain flow for a period of time. And that's kind of like in my numerology, I have a lot of 4 energy. So I like structure, and I struggle with structure as much because I like to be outside of the box, but I also love structure. So do you have a favorite, either painting or a drawing that's very meaningful to you? Or maybe even a story to tell us. Like I love the sleeping fox, and I love the dragon. The sleeping fox is probably, I think it's the first one that I saw when I became friends with you. I'm not even sure how we connected, maybe a year and a half ago, Me, just going and saying, I'm going to friend a bunch of people today. And that's how I've met so many unique individuals, by just happening upon them this way. So I'm so glad that I get that adventurous spirit. But do you have a favorite?
Oh, well, I do have paintings that I've kept because they mean something. But I have favorites that I've sold, and then I have a collection of work that I like, and also this changes too. So at the moment, doing my Visions of Albion book, I'm really loving creating these works. So within each group of work, I might have certain favourites too. But the painting I've kept, I might sell it one day, perhaps, is a painting, Gandalf, which I did in my sort of early mid-20s, of the Tolkien style. So I have that. I have that over my settee in my living room. Because to me, that was the ultimate of my style, of my technique. When I painted that, I thought, I can paint anything. Even though I knew there'd be hard work to paint anything, but it talked to me, and it also talks to me in my childhood.
Yeah.
So it's personal, But if somebody offered the right money one day, it could go. And if it was the right person, you see, when I paint a picture, I immediately let them go in my heart because they're not mine. The image came from me, and but the painting belongs to somebody. That's what I always think, that this painting belongs to somebody, and that right person will come along and take it, and that's always happened. So the image is mine, and also because I do prints of my artwork, a lot of people can also have that image too, without having to buy an original. They can have a really nice print of the work, and so that there's that side too. So there's a lot of work not on my website that I have in drawers, drawings and things. So there's one or two others. There was a painting I did called Meeting, which is my visionary nature. It's 2 deer. And I did that. That was one of the first paintings of this new explosion. Remember I talked about that new way of painting. And that was one, I think that was the second one I did in that style. And remember I talked about the deer being so significant to me. I kept it for many years, but I sold it a couple of years ago because I knew it was time. And I was happy to do that. So that does happen. So I don't dislike any of my work. I like it all. I don't mean that in a big-headed way, because I mean that it's an expression of who I was at that time, and I don't want to hide that. I am happy to look back at the former me and think, blessed. That's me. And it's funny because I look back at all the paintings sometimes and I see something with fresh eyes in them. It's quite amazing, really. So that doesn't really fully answer your question. It does a little bit, but I think my favourite picture is always going to be the next one.
The next one?
The next one I do.
I love
Picasso.
that.
I've nicked it from Picasso because Picasso was once asked, "What's the greatest work you've ever done?" And he said the next one. So my favourite work will be the next one.
Yes, and that's
so
the joy.
Yes. I guess so. Yeah. I mean, it's like a recent painting I did was called Angel, which is a kingfisher. I don't know if you see that one. I might have sent it to you, but no, it's a visionary painting of a kingfisher, and he's got like a halo, or she's got a halo around the head.
Yes.
So that I love painting that, but I knew instantly it would go, and it did. a beautiful person bought it, a very beautiful person, and of course it was meant to be theirs. But the kingfisher was very significant to me. So may I read another poem, because it describes the painting in a way and how I feel about kingfishers and nature and everything.
Yes, and I'm going to let you know here we have about 9 minutes left, and so reading this is perfect, and then you can give us your contact information. And I did want to let you know that as it approaches the 2-hour mark, it may make a loud beeping noise, but it will still continue to probably be recording. But we maybe can do our best to round it up in 9 minutes to be on the safest side here. We're about it, just so that you're aware of where we're running here. So, yes, I would love another poem.
Well, it's only a little poem. It'll only take me half a minute. So, it's a sonnet, and the sonnet is a very beautiful form of poetry, which can rhyme, not rhyme, but it has a rhythm to it and certain words of stress. So sonnets are made, very famous sonnets are by Shakespeare, for instance. He wrote a lot of sonnets. So this sonnet is called Kingfisher. So I'll read this. Kingfisher. Mist sliced by razor beak in surging flight, the river hurries beneath dazzling wing, both golden hue and blessed blue in light, resplendent are the clothes of Fisher King. With piercing note this angel called to me, to make me aware of its coming force, then dived into my heart to break me free. In wonderment I cast away remorse. From Eden did this herald come, it seems, though often by the river bank it flies. A vision real, it needs no prophet dreams, its beauty born from earth, not heaven's skies. I walk this land, in Eden do I stride, and look about, for heaven does not hide.
Yes.
So that describes
very beautiful.
my painting. That describes it all for me, really. So that's what it's about.
Indeed. I don't want to talk too much after that. I want to let the moment still have its energy there. Thank you. And thank you so much for giving us here nearly 2 hours of your time. That was an amazing show. And as we round up, if you will then also give the audience your contact information, what you have available for them to purchase, to commission, to join in for workshops, and so on, and your contact, which will be in the description here for the show. Everyone who goes in via computer will also see the slideshow of some of the paintings and drawings that you have talked about.
Yes, well, very, very simply, if people go to my website, there's lots of information there. There's lots of images to see. And my website is www.edwardfosterart, A-R-T for art, and that's .co.uk. So it's www.edwardfosterart.co.uk, and there's lots of information on my workshops. There's information on my prints that you can get online, and also there's lots of music of my compositions there. There's lots of YouTube videos that you can listen to. I've also got some other YouTube videos where I'm talking about my artwork, and of course there's plenty of images to see there too. I also have a newsletter that if you go to the contact page on my website, you can sign up. It's completely free. It takes about 5 seconds, to sign up for. And every couple of weeks or so, I send a newsletter out about, what I'm doing and all sorts of things. And also, please connect with me on Facebook. It's always nice to do that. It's lovely to make friends that way, like your good self, Cindy. And you can connect with me on Facebook. On my website, there's a little S symbol. You can click on that, and it goes directly to my personal page. And that's a good way. So, yeah, there you go.
Okay, wonderful. That was great. So thank you, Edward, for joining me and the audience here. And the ending here, which I'm going to do, is going to be also a recording from Edward. And this one is called Toucan. And Edward, can you just give us a little information about Toucan as we are ending and saying goodbye here?
Well, Toucan is from my recent album, which is called Toucan. So it's named after the title. And as you would imagine, it's named after the beautiful bird toucan. So it's quite a happy piece, which is very sort of Latin American. So it's really fun to listen to. So enjoy.
Okay, thank you. And thank you everyone here who joined us tonight. And I will be announcing during the week who is coming on the show for next week. This is Cindy Magnuson of C Source Energy Epiphanies at thectechnique.com. And I wish you all a beautiful, blessed week. And we will talk to you then. Bye-bye now. And goodbye, Edward.
Goodbye, Cindy. Thank you so much.
You are welcome. We'll see you next time.